Hello, everybody. So, this video is going to be a little bit different than my other videos. So, I'm going to do a little bit of coloring on this page. This is a drawing that I did, a digital drawing of myself and my daughter for Mother's Day. I am going to color this in while I do a little bit of a story time. In my first video, I did a Mariah Elizabeth Create This Book 3 prompt, and I kind of thought that I was doing a good job of like explaining who I am, but it's hard to show who you are when you don't want to talk about where you've been. In light of the Scorpio full moon that just passed, I am going to tell my truth. We're going to talk about where I've been leading up to a burnout in 2022, leading to current day, and why I'm doing this channel to begin with. And then we're going to talk about a couple projects. So I'll try not to keep this too gloom and doom for too long, but it's a slightly more serious video. And I'll tell you that if you are uninterested in a story time like this is probably not the video for you. You can skip all the way to the end and see the finished product, and I will catch you in the next video. Let's go back to 2015. My marriage was coming to an end, and I found myself alone, without my job, without stability, in such a very weird place. And from that point, it was offered for me to move to Texas to help care for two young girls as their live in nanny. The job that I had previously left was also a nannying position. This would be my fourth nanny position. I decided to pick up my life and move to Texas. While there, my role shifted over time as I built bonds with the children, and eventually my role had shifted with their father. I was also building my art commission career at that point. I was finally really taking off with doing it. I had only really started taking my commission art career seriously around 2012. I did end up having to pause for a few years while nannying because it went from being a nanny to being something so much more. In 2018, we relocated here to California, and life was chaotic. It had been up to that point full of custody battles, which I will not speak of publicly, and long journeys of supporting the children through very difficult family circumstances. In 2019, the completely unexpected happened. I became pregnant despite my history of infertility and pregnancy losses. I was told I was pregnant, and I had at that point been 3 years into an endometriosis diagnosis. I carried my daughter to term through the pregnancy, and the birth. The pregnancy was difficult, and the birth was traumatic, and ultimately resulted in a PTSD diagnosis. While pregnant, I was pregnant during COVID. While most people have really fun and lighthearted pregnancy journeys, my journey was not so relaxed. There wasn't an opportunity to have a baby shower in any traditional sense because distancing was still a thing and people were not gathering. Everyone was just a little bit secluded already in this situation, if you will. So throughout COVID, I worked 4 jobs to support the family. I made masks on my Instagram, and I did grocery deliveries, and I had been a manager for retail, and my job had gone furlough, and I was unable to continue in my retail position. And knowing that I do have retail experience and that the only places that were open and available during COVID were grocery stores, I then took up a position at a grocery store, customer service type stuff, all while pregnant. Managing extreme mobility issues that continued long after the delivery. I did end up spraining my back twice during my pregnancy. And since my pregnancy was what they would call a geriatric pregnancy because I was over the age of 35. Talk about finding a way to make you feel old. I was also suffering from some numbness on one side of my body, my limbs, my lower leg, and I was told that is completely normal. And I'm having a lot of pain and mobility issues. And shortly after giving birth to my daughter, I married her father. I realized that working a real retail position was no longer going to serve me or serve my family. It was just too dangerous at the time. And with my limited mobility, standing 8+ hours, 40 hours a week was not going to be possible for me. So I had to figure something else out. So I decided to go back to school. I enrolled in school, university, to get a BA in graphic design and media arts with emphasis on illustration. Remember, at this point, people, I was in my 40s going back to school for the first time in 20 years. I hadn't been in school in 20 years at that point, and uh, it was weird, to say the least. Weird. Nobody talks about going back to school in your 30s and 40s. It's weird. Everybody else is so young. It's super unrelatable. And especially every single class, when you have to tell that little blurb story about who you are and where you come from and your family story and all the things, it's so complicated because people just don't understand where you're coming from. But I digress. Sorry, that was a minor side quest. So eventually, in 2022, my marriage ended. After years of emotional strain, I had become a single parent and a full-time student. At that point, I had a 4.0 GPA and I was struggling. It was my daughter in the daytime, then school for a couple hours, and then back to my daughter. And then it was back to school again once she went to sleep. And then I got minor amounts of sleep, and then I was awake again. And this worked for a little while because I could actually get some rest when she was taking her nap. But once my daughter stopped taking naps, it was all over. Weekends where I had to hit it hard because it's where all my deadlines were. School was, let's just say, challenging. In 2022, I hit a roadblock, could no longer function at the mental and physical capacity that I was functioning at. The horrible realization that I had hit complete burnout had set in, and I had to make some very tough choices. Now, I say this being on the other side. I am coming out of the fog. I am waking back up. So I say this on the other side. I am not 100%. It's not perfect. It'll never be perfect. It's never perfect, but it is so much better. I will tell you right now that amidst this most tumultuous, most straining, most exhausting time in my life, an old friend that had always supported my creative work for many, many years re entered my life. We actually met through charity, through mutual charity work that we did. We ended up starting to date, and he became an unwavering source of support for both me and my daughters. I say daughters because during this time, my second to oldest stepdaughter moved in with me to help me with my daughter so I could continue to go to school. But with my burnout situation, obviously, that didn't really pan out that way. And this man treated all of my daughters like they were his own. And when I say all of my daughters, I don't just mean like my biological daughter, but also my three older stepdaughters that are not blood related to me. He treated them as if him and I had birthed them ourselves, acting as a loving father figure. And while I cannot speak for them, I can see that they all genuinely love and care for him as well as how he feels for them. Constant encouragement and kindness were a big part of why I am here today creating this art and why I'm continuing to do this. He has been my inspiration through all of this, all of the working diagnoses, the tests, trying to figure out what's going on with me, helping me navigate. That he was very much the inspiration that has helped me through my weight loss journey. But we'll come back to that. So, with all of my physical health limitations and the burnout, I realized that traditional work was no longer an option. I pivoted fully into deciding to build my creative brand and business. How Chibi Kills Cutie was created and why we're doing what we're doing now. I decided to create the Cutieverse, which is pretty much all of my chibis. I call them cuties. So back to the timeline. So I basically knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't know exactly what. I was still having the numbness on one side of my body. And I went back to the doctor, said, "Hey, it's been a while now. This should have gone away." And I was told that it was just because I was pregnant. But unfortunately, that was not the right doctor for me because his response was, "You need to lose weight." And I agreed, but do you guys remember the part where I said I had limited mobility and pain and things for the last 4 years? Yeah, you're bound to gain a little bit of weight. But unfortunately, I gained a lot of bit of weight. I'm not going to get into it, but obviously there were other things than just that particular issue, the mobility issue. It was just one thing causing another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing was causing that. It's like doing dominoes. One thing causes another thing. And so that for me was the biggest struggle, was finding the right doctor. And thank goodness I did find the right doctor. And while she did agree with the weight loss solution, she wanted to test other things and figure it out and try to figure out what the problem is, because it wasn't my weight that was causing the problem. A medical induced situation that my body had gotten into, and we needed to figure out how to reverse it. And the inspiration for my weight loss journey, he himself had some health issues, and I won't get into his story because that's his story to tell. But I will say that he worked very, very hard and lost over 250 pounds. That's not a little bit of weight, that's a lot of bit of weight. I have lost now at this point almost 70 pounds. And every time people ask me, like, "Oh my gosh, how much weight have you lost?" And I always would hesitate. And for a while I was like, "Oh, I don't know, just a few, like whatever." And then eventually I said 60 pounds. But every time I said 60 pounds, all I thought of in my head was, "You lost 60 pounds? That's a Backstreet Boy. If you know, you know." And if you know, I want you to comment down below what movie that is from. Sorry, side quest. Anyway, so I ended up losing almost 70 pounds. And it was very, very apparent that my mobility issues were an issue for a reason. I will talk about this. The surgeries I am having are mostly on my leg. While I lost the weight on the rest of my body, my leg remained the same on one side of my body. I look like the guy from, what is it? Lady in the Water or something, the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dongs movie, whatever that is, where the guy only works out on one side of his body, so he has just, like, one big arm. Yeah, that was me, but just, like, with one leg, and I do have pictures of that, and if anybody wants to hear, like, the more in-depth story about that, please leave a comment, and I will go more in depth. Or if you guys also wanna, know about, my meet cute with my boyfriend and all that stuff, please put it down in the comments. Let me know that you guys want to hear that story, and we'll do a story time for that. But anyway, yeah, I had one side of my body that was significantly larger than the other, and I could feel the difference before I had lost the weight. But because nobody could see it and it was an invisible thing that nobody else could see, it became kind of a thing where it was like, "Oh yeah, she's just saying a thing again." They literally treated me like I was a hypochondriac with WebMD. Ugh, the gaslighting of it all. Very clearly see something was very wrong. It turns out what something was very wrong. I am having my surgeries, and with my surgeries comes the realization that I cannot create videos the way I was before in the times that I have the surgery. So when I have the surgery and I'm recovering, I cannot make videos the way I was making them before. So that becomes such a challenge for me. And while I am a laugh instead of cry kind of girl, on a more serious note, the surgeries are not the only thing, and the swelling is not the only thing I'm going through. Like I said, the dominoes, one thing and another thing and another thing. So one thing that I do have to talk about and why I can't make videos the way I was making them before. I want to be face to face on the videos. The problems that I'm currently having is I'm afraid. I'm afraid because those of you who do know me personally in person, my hair, my hair color, my hair length, my extensions, all the things, that is my security blanket. And I am in a place now with my health that because of things I'm not going to get into, I'm losing my hair. Hair loss for women, I think, is not talked about enough because it is a very serious struggle and it is extremely hard to deal with. And it's hard to accept because not that we're just these awful, shallow, vain creatures, but it just becomes such a big part of our expression of who we are and what we stand for and how we want to, you know, outwardly show ourselves to the masses. And to lose that is, for me in particular, quite devastating. This video is my way of coming out and saying, this is what I'm dealing with. This is where I've been. This is where I'm going, that I'm human. I guess my point is that I am not going to hide. I've decided against it, which was the whole point of me making this video to begin with, is I am not going to hide. I chopped all my hair off. As you can see in my thumbnail of this video, my hair is pretty short. I will probably continue to cut it shorter and shorter every week. That way, as my baby hairs that grow back in start growing back in, my hair will keep getting shorter and shorter as they get longer and longer, and eventually they'll meet each other in the middle. It seems like sound logic to me anyway. All of my insecurities, all of my things, I hide them under my colorful hair. A lot of struggle and a lot of change. So you will notice that in some of my newer videos, my hands look much bigger at my bedside, so I can record at my bed and I can still record painting or drawing or swatching or whatever. So once I'm healed from my surgery, I'm going to be making myself a new studio situation set up. So I decided to come up with a project that I could work on while also resting. And this is what I came up with. I had already decided I was going to do the Make It Miniverse Harry Potter potions class. I was already going to build that. I was already going to do that in a video. I decided to make the potions class into this alternate reality. It is basically this potions class. I'm redesigning it into a room of requirement, if you will. Just an idea, but reimagined as a classroom of comfort. So basically, a magically protected, accessible, adaptive learning space where students who struggle with mental overload and physical challenges can study at their own pace. I decided to go with this idea because I realized that myself having neurodivergent issues that I'm not going to go into right now, and also my daughter being a little neurospicy herself, that it's just not represented anywhere. So I decided to do this lighthearted version of the wizarding school that shall not be named, a fifth house. A house that has been missing, has been lost in the annals of a dusty dungeon somewhere that's not talked about. Now, this particular house is very different from the other ones in the way that the students don't necessarily get a letter. They get a purple taffeta box that is very shiny with lots of fun sensory feelings to it. And once they open this box, there will be a fidget of some kind that pertains to their particular brand of neurospicy sauce. And when they touch it, it's a port key and it takes them to this classroom. The classroom itself is so different from any of the other classrooms that you have seen thus far in the normal wizarding school. This place exists not in the school, but not outside the school either. It's stands alone. And Professor Puddlebum created it because he suffers from agoraphobia and could not finish in the traditional wizarding school, could not continue being the head of the house as is. So now he is a separate entity. He has created this safe space for other children that suffer from things very similar to his own personal agoraphobic story. This is my passion project. It is an outlet and it is a chance to create something inclusive and quirky and healing for myself and for anyone else who ever felt like they wouldn't have fit in the traditional four houses. I will continue this series. I will talk more about this classroom and how it works. And also, I will be introducing students and characters that go to school in this classroom. And I hope that you will join me for that. I have lots of other works. I will give you a little bit of a hint and a tidbit. I am going to be working on not another prompt book. No, it's a prompt book, but it's a special kind of prompt book and it is coming. I am working on it. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but I will say I would like to have it out around August so that way it could be purchased and people can have their copies by October 1st. And when you understand the project later, then you will understand why I say that. Also, I have a lot more cuties to come. Every month, I am dropping 3 coloring pages of my cuties that pertain to that month, and it's up for free on my website at chibikillscutie.com. Just click the coloring pages tab, and then each month it's broken down. I would like to, once I'm healed from all my surgeries, start doing live where I can do a live color with me where people can color with me, and also maybe some paint nights where we all just kind of get the same similar ish supplies together and we all get our own prompts and we just paint together, have some story times, talk about some stuff. So, yeah, with all that being said, I hope that you all can understand that I am on the other side of a challenging situation. I'm trying to make the best of it, and this channel is that. Welcome to my garden of creative weirdness, and do not stop planting your dream seeds. And this is just one of my dream seeds blooming. And you guys are here for it, and I love that for you, and I love that for me. So, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is where you are. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!